Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for that warm welcome. So when I was 10 years old, I was all about my Grandma LePage. And that is because up until that point, I had very strict parents. I had a lot of rules and guidelines. But when you were around Grandma, those rules just went away. And it blew my 10-year-old mind. I couldn't get enough of it. You see, I wasn't allowed to have sweets. Grandma snuck me cookies. We couldn't have soda. Grandma would pour me Orange Crush and eyeball my dad. Your move, hotshot. First time I ever had SpaghettiOs, Grandma LePage's house. Best pasta I ever had. Up until that point. Didn't quite develop a palate till later. Grandma LePage was a badass. She was a force. She was this little French lady who did not give a fuck. And I was obsessed with her and how rules just went away. Me and my brother loved going over to Grandma's house because it was the only adult who didn't talk down to us, pat our hair, just pinch our cheeks. Grandma talked like we were peers, like we were in this shit together. We were convinced that she was just a kid tricking everybody with how old she was. Because she would play in the dirt with us. She would build forts with us. It was amazing. She taught us about life. One of her favorite things to do is she would point to her stomach and then shake her fist and be like, "You gotta trust your guts, boys." We'd be like, "We're trusting our guts, Grandma." When it was nice out, I grew up in Rochester, New York, so when it was nice out, all right. She would drive us to Charlotte Beach, and she would take the side roads because I could stand on her lap, and I would steer her car. Grandma caught us one time playing Go Fish and was like, "What are you doing?" She taught us how to play poker for money. We got to keep our winnings. I mean, it was pennies, but still, we felt like little ballers. Christmas at Grandma's house was unbelievable. She would attach sleigh bells in the chimney, run a fishing line down the chimney, into the house, around the corner, up the dining room table, across the table, and tie it to a little ring she had at her seat at the head of the table. And the night before Christmas, when we all finished eating, she would pull the ring, and the sleigh bells would ring. She'd be like, "You hear that, boys?" I'd be like, "What is it, Grandma?" She was like, "Santa's on the roof. Go outside and see if you can see him." So we'd get all of our stuff on, run outside, and then Grandma, my mom and Dad, and Aunt Marge would all take the presents that were hidden in her house and put them all underneath the fireplace. So when we came back inside, we were like, Grandma was like, "What's wrong? Did you see Santa?" And she was like, and we'd be like, "No, Grandma, we didn't." And she was like, "Too bad, left all these presents for you." And we would just dive into the presents and roll around and rip them open. It was the greatest. Now, my dad was born with a different last name. And when he was 2 years old and Aunt Marge was 4 years old, their dad, who was abusive and alcoholic, shot their mom in the head. And she died instantly. I know, it took a turn. But the father was thrown in Attica prison, and they were put in foster care, which was a part of this giant church. And the church would have these charities and line up all the orphans and in a parking lot, and then people would drive by in their cars and see if they wanted them. And it was really hard because as a set, the two of them, it was harder to get families than just one. And when Grandma LePage found out about it, her heart just broke. And she was 50 years old at the time, in her 50s, and she couldn't have kids. And her and Grandpa had talked about it, but, unfortunately the doctor said they couldn't have kids. So she heard about it and went to her family and talked to her friends about, listen, I'm going to talk to adopt those kids in the paper. And everybody said she was crazy and she was too old and she couldn't do it. I mean, who knows what those kids would be like? If that dad is that crazy, what would those kids be like? You can't have that in your house. And Grandma would just pace back and forth, and she would clench her fists and be like, this isn't right. Those kids deserve a chance. So she just turned and looked at Grandma and was like, we're getting kids today. That's it. Grandma LePage saved our family. Now, when Grandma LePage died, I never cried more in my life. But I might not be French, but I'm damn proud to be LePage. Thank you.